In this video, I'm going to take you through how I plan a race season and also what I have in store for the front end of my race season. Quite a few of you were interested in my race planner from my last video, and I'll link that somewhere up above or down below, check the description. But I thought I'd show you how I plan my whole race season because I'm literally about to start racing. It's quite interesting to see how I start from the beginning of the season all the way through into how I decide on what I'm going to race and why I'm going to race it. So I'll take you through exactly how I do that on Notion. Again, I do have a template for this. The link is in the description below if you are interested to help you out yourself. I use it with some of my clients as well. It just helps kind of like formalize a little bit of like what they're thinking, why they're thinking of it, and essentially why they should go for what they want to go for. I always find planning a race season is actually quite difficult, and it's something that especially my clients or my athletes that I work with do struggle with, which is kind of what prompted me to think about why I do it or how I come about a season plan in order to help them, because I could go through it and I do go through it with them, but also it's important for them to sit and reflect themselves and be able to work through this themselves in order to come up with the ideas so that they are fully committed and that's something that they want to do rather than something that I want them to do, because it's quite easy for me to think or say, oh, I think you should do this. In reality, if it's not something that they truly want to do, then it becomes a bit arbitrary. So yeah, it's really important to understand why you want to do something, and then you can go about setting the kind of like breakdown of those goals. I call this the season planner or triathlon season planner. And it goes through what will it take mentally, choosing the goals, planning those races, how to get from where you are now to those races and those goals, and then obviously what will it take weekly in training. So what will it take mentally? Understanding yourself and your motivations. And this is all about like why you're doing what you're doing, why you want to prioritize triathlon over something else, whether it be your life, relationships or family, etc. Or in the kind of context of how do you fit that into your day-to-day life. So why do you do what you want to do? So I want to do what I want to do because it's fulfilling. It helps my overarching goal of having a happy, fulfilled life and being able to afford to live and afford to do the things that I want to do. So afford a happy, fulfilled life. You're gonna have to ignore my spelling here, it is atrocious, I'm dyslexic, etc, etc. I love striving towards goals and the process of that, so relentless pursuit of the process of progress. So it kind of fits into that. I think that I'm one to really enjoy the process of things, and obviously on a day-to-day basis, that is all triathlon's about. So just going about that process in order to achieve those goals. So yeah, relentless pursuit of process of progress. I've spelt that horrendously. I love being in an environment that is striving towards a bigger picture. So surrounding myself with like-minded people. So yeah, why does it matter to you? What long-term impact you're trying to have? So long-term impacts for me are things like exposure, finance, and then bigger picture is like obviously networking and helping others, helping you guys. I really enjoy sharing my experiences, and then obviously that will help other people, inspire other people. And that's really what I guess my overarching thing as well in terms of my values and what I want to give back is that whole kind of inspire, motivate, educate. It's what I do with teaching, it's what I do with coaching, and obviously YouTube. So yeah, help, educate, and inspire others to reach their goals. I mean, you can go on or you can leave it at that. I think 5's plenty. Application, how do you do it? How do you get the most out of yourself every day in pursuit of your why? What does this look like in practice? Goal setting, planning, reflection, self-talk, framing, communication. I mean, I have a ton of these from just day-to-day planning, having kind of a routine. I've gone through this sort of thing in the past, but effectively it's setting systems or having systems to automate the process. Yes, reflection all the time, on week to week / month to month. Obviously having those big overarching goals and then breaking them down into smaller goals. So I tend to set yearly goals or 4-year goals, and then short-term goals, like whether they be quarterly or weekly goals. So weekly goals will be a certain amount of hours a week, and then monthly goals again, maybe a certain amount of hours, or accomplish a certain thing within training for a specific discipline. So it's like, oh, improve my running by doing X, Y, Z. So yeah, I think setting long and short-term goals. You can be a little bit more specific if you want to, but I tend to sort of do this and then go into the minutiae and then obviously forget about it, because once you've set your routine and automate it with the systems, it kind of takes care of itself. Do have someone to help you do this, obviously, like I have my whole team around me, so that whether that be Emily or whether that be my coach or whether that be the people in the squad, they all help me to achieve this. So at least get a coach, because if they're doing any of this stuff and helping you with this stuff, then they'll be able to really encourage you and help you prioritize. So if it is a case of, oh, actually I want to spend more time with my family, then they can be like, oh, this session doesn't actually matter, so maybe just drop that and then, you know, spend more time with them. Or whatever it is, it's like, actually, no, you also want to achieve this goal and this is going to be important in order to do that. So yeah, just bear that in mind when you're choosing your team as well. What effect does this have? So output, what qualities are developed from these processes? Confidence, consistency, resilience, adaptability, and organization. So yeah, all of those things, right? But what do you want to get out of it? So I can't really get past consistency, but also discipline. I think discipline comes above consistency, so I might even change that. So it could go above consistency, because in order to have consistency, you need discipline. So I think those two are the key ones for me. And then maybe out of that, I want a little bit more adaptability. I'm a little bit rigid in what I do. Obviously, like, come on, like this sort of stuff is very rigid. But yeah, I think that covers the majority of like understanding yourself and your motivations. You can just work through it in your own time or with a coach or partner. But yeah, that's really useful. Referencing, understanding your journey. So this is just kind of like goal setting. So what's your 4-year plan? What would be required to achieve this? How does that break down over the whole period? And how does each session and cycle relate to the overall plan? So obviously you've got your 4-year, your 1 year, and then your weekly. So just make sure that you've got those 3 distinct time periods. Okay, so moving on from that, we want to choose your goals. And those goals can be something like hit 12 hours a week of training, train a total of 600 hours, for example, in a year. So you got like training goals, year-long goals, and personal resolution. So personal might be spend more time with my loved ones, for example. I don't know. That's for you to decide. It's completely individual. Yeah, I mean, some of these might apply to me. So complete an Ironman, that was definitely one from last year. Improve swim technique, that's always on my agenda, because you can't be too efficient at swimming. So anyway, quick summary of goals there. Like obviously you can use the referencing above to help with that. And then you go into quarterly goals. So you can always split your year into quarters, and whether that be like the front quarter is to do with training, so January to April is to do with training goals, like hit X amount of hours or improve swimming or cycling or running, and have those specific, like, I guess, goals within the disciplines. And then you can go into your race Q3 and Q4 goals. So that's just something that you can look at and go through, and then did you accomplish them? Did you fall short? It's always good to do the reflection, because if you don't do the reflection, then how are you meant to be like, okay, well, why didn't I get to those goals? Like, I didn't do enough training, or I had too much life commitments, or whatever it was. And then you can be like, well, actually, I just need to rectify that. And it's easy to rectify that because then you can just stop doing that or do more of it. So planning races is always a difficult one, and in order to help me with that, I kind of just found something on the internet which looked roughly right in terms of basically a year at a glance. And I made my own, and it's just this here. I've now got it on Google, so it's just really easy to look at. Shows you all of the weekends, and you can basically just scroll through it and just make sure that you put in the races that you want. Just obviously Google the races, like look at the Ironman or Challenge Championship or T100, or whether it be the UK races, look at the British Triathlon website. They've got a ton of races on there, and then you can just go through and just click and put in the calendar so that you can see how many weekends you've got in between each race, but also when you're starting and when you're going to finish. And then you can plan your training around that as well. I tend to work to a rough set of guides, especially for my athletes. Like, not so much for me because I do a little bit more training. So the more training you do, the closer you can do races. But essentially, if you're talking about a season duration of about 6 months, you can have maybe 2 70.3 triathlons and then additional races spattered in between those races. So whether it be a half distance or Olympic triathlon or sprint distance triathlon, you can put those in between. But this is a rough guide that I've got in here for like race 1 Olympic triathlon, race 2 half distance triathlon, and like spaces in between each of those races. And that gives a really good idea of how many races you can fit into a season, but also the gaps in between those races as well. And I do that for myself. I've got my own rough template, but it could be really good to have a rough idea of how many you should be doing or could be doing, and then the gaps in between so that you can rest, recover, and train in between. It allows for a logistical progression from shorter to longer races. It also provides the opportunity to build fitness and experience while incorporating appropriate rest, the taper periods leading up to a key 70.3 race, for example. You can adjust the specific dates depending on you, but yeah, I think it all makes sense. You've got to monitor your progress and make sure that you're working towards that goal constantly. Okay, finally, how to get from A to Z. Where are you now versus where you want to be? You've got to understand your physiology. So where's my physiology on the swim? It's probably 9. Bike is maybe 9.5. And running is 6. It's not great. And I'm talking as a professional here, obviously, like in terms of where I want to be. Hormonal, like, yeah, you can just go through it. Hormonal is like, are you well nourished? Are you eating enough? Are you feeding yourself enough? Like, are you on top of things in your day-to-day life? You can rate yourself in those disciplines as well, nutrition in those, and the skills within those as well. It depends if you're doing short course or long course, what the skills are. So for example, skills on the bike, that could be technical, that could be aerodynamic. And then you go into the application of these things, determining the optimum individual combination of frequency, volume, and intensity. So basically, what training will you be doing and how much of it are you going to be doing? What are you capable of doing within your day-to-day life? And obviously that depends on what you want to prioritize and how much time you're willing to allocate. And then output, what impact will this have? Like, how quick will your progression be? And again, that's kind of down to a coach, so I would recommend working with a coach on this. But yeah, you can then just plug it into your what will it take weekly, like what do you think that you're going to be able to accomplish within that week? And then you can kind of have a rough template, or use Training Peaks, or use a coach to come up with a plan for Training Peaks, or download a program. Like, it doesn't matter what you use as long as you understand what you're willing to put in and what you'll then get out. And again, do work with someone because they'll have a better understanding of what equates to what performance in the long run. So anyway, that's how I go about my season planning. And what I have in store this season is my first race is going to be Valencia 70.3. And the reason being it's the first European opener, and I can't really afford to go elsewhere. So I can't afford to go to America or anything like that, where the Pro Tri Series races are, but they might be a little bit less competitive, or I don't know if they're going to be less competitive in America, but it's not as deep and competitive as Europe. Usually. I'm not saying that's going to be the case this year. I haven't even seen the start list for Valencia yet, but that will be my opening race of the season, and that's soon. That's literally next weekend. Then I'm going to go into Challenge Championships Samarin, and that's going to be epic. That's going to be one of my bigger races of the season. then Kreisgau, 70.3. Then I'm going to go to Roth. So Roth is going to be my first full distance of the season, and that pretty much concludes the front end of my season. So that's as far as I've gotten with planning at the moment. I'm going to see how those races go, and then the back end of the season, I'll probably start planning after the first couple of races, and I'll see where I'm at. And that'll give me a better indication of what I'm doing and why I'm doing it. But I guess the overarching thing is get a little bit more reach and exposure so that I can earn more money, whether it be through YouTube. So thank you for subscribing if you do. Through sponsorship, which obviously, hopefully some podiums, if I do get them, will help with that. Some finance from prize money if I do get that as well. But yeah, just all of that sort of stuff kind of feeds into this, being able to afford to live life, do triathlon, and yeah, reach, exposure, help others, inspire others. And yeah, it all kind of fits into that. So we'll see how it goes. That's my current plan. It might change, it might not, but hopefully everything goes smoothly and I stick to that plan for the time being. Thanks for watching. Do hit the comments below, check out the description below for some more links to other videos and templates and this, that and the other. And yeah, if you did get any value, hit subscribe.